Hi, I'm Ellen from the Chili Dog. I've finished knitting my 4th ridge pocket scarf and I'm getting ready to join the pockets to the scarf. I'm planning to use the mattress stitch to seam the sides, and I'll demonstrate that technique in another video. However, before I start stitching, I'd like to take a minute to talk about selvage stitches, particularly when it's okay to slip the first stitch of each row and when it's better to avoid that slip. Let's get started. Oftentimes, when knitters are working back and forth in rows, instead of knitting or purling the very first stitch of the row, they choose to slip that stitch. It's called a chained selvage. And if we look closely at the edge of my swatch, you can see why. The edge stitch looks very much like the links of a chain. That edging looks very different than what I used at the edge of my scarf. My edge stitch is worked in stockinette stitch, and I did not slip the first stitch of every row. If we compare the two side by side, you'll notice that the chained selvage is more open and lacier. The plain selvage is denser and some would consider a little bit bumpier. Neither one is necessarily right or better. Oftentimes, if you're knitting something like a scarf or a shawl or a blanket, it's simply a matter of which effect you'd prefer to create at the edge of your knitting. But there is one situation when you definitely should not slip the first stitch of each row, and that's when you'll be seaming pieces together using the mattress stitch. The beauty of using mattress stitch to seam the selvage of two knit fabrics together is that on one side of your fabric, the stitch pattern lines up perfectly and it's uninterrupted across the join. And just in case you're wondering, everything lines up on the wrong side as well, but you do get this slight ridge. This smooth join can only happen if you have that dense, non-slipped selvage, because each edge stitch is the same height as the stitch that's right next to it. When you slip the first stitch of each row, the edge stitch is 2 rows tall, not just one. So when you use the mattress stitch to create your seam, the rows will still align, but things aren't so tidy where the two fabrics butt up against each other. You have these elongated stitches where the legs are 2 rows high, sit right next to each other, disrupting the stitch pattern across the join. I hope you enjoyed seeing why not to slip the first stitch of the row when you'll be seaming 2 pieces of fabric together with the mattress stitch. If you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your knitting friends. If you'd like to try a little seaming, head over to the shop section of thechillydog.com and look for my 4th ridge pocket scarf. Until we stitch again, happy knitting!